So in our last video, we saw how to graph a compound inequality. Now we're going to learn how to solve, and then we'll graph our compound inequalities. So as you can see, we have two inequalities sitting here, and they're joined by the word and. So it's pretty simple to solve a compound inequality. You solve the first inequality, and then you solve the second one. So you just look at them one at a time. So I'm going to look at my inequality on the left. I'm going to add 1 to both sides. So I get 5n is greater than negative 25. Dividing both sides by 5, and the value I'm dividing by is positive, so I don't have to flip my inequality. I can't graph yet. I have to solve both inequalities before I can graph. So I'm going to add 2 to both sides. 7n is less than or equal to 14. Dividing by a positive 7, I get n is less than or equal to 2. Once you have solutions for both inequalities, then you graph with the process that we already looked at. So we're going to set up our number line, making sure we have room for both of our solutions, figuring out what circle we need at negative 5n is greater than, so that's an open circle, and is less than or equal to negative 2. The or equal to will give me a closed circle. Use your arrows for direction, and is greater than negative 5, and less than or equal to positive 2, so we're going to be shading in between. Another example, solving the first inequality, I'm going to subtract 8 from both sides. So I get 8x is greater than or equal to negative 72. Because remember, I'm adding a negative 8, so I'm getting a bigger negative number. I'm more in debt. Dividing both sides by positive 8, so I don't have to flip the inequality. I get negative 9. Solving my second inequality, adding 7 to both sides. I get negative 8x is greater than or equal to negative 72. Dividing both sides by negative 8, so this time my inequality will flip, I get positive 9. So this time, because there's kind of a few numbers in between those, instead of doing a scale for each of them, I'm going to put negative 9 and positive 9, knowing that negative 9 is to the left of, and maybe right in the middle we'll put 0 just to show a little bit of scale. Both of them are or equal to, so I'm going to have closed circles on both my solutions. And then use your arrows. X is greater than or equal to negative 9. X is less than or equal to positive 9. So I'm going to shade in between. There's one more type of compound inequality that we need to see with the and that's a double inequality. So when you've got two inequality symbols joined together with 3 expressions. The way that we solve this is we use the golden rule of algebra for all 3 sides. So remember, the golden rule of algebra, whatever you do to one side of an equation or inequality, you do to the other. In this case, whatever you do to one side of an inequality, you do to all 3 sides of the inequality. So my variable is in the middle, that's what I'm trying to get by itself. So I'm going to add 6 to all 3 sides. So on the far left, we've got negative 36 plus 6 is negative 30. I'm starting to dig myself out of debt. Adding doesn't flip the inequality. In the middle, the negative 6 cancels. Less than negative 15 plus 6 is negative 9. Again, kind of digging myself out of debt there. To finish solving for g, I will divide by 3, and I will do that to all 3 sides of my inequality. So negative 30 divided by 3 is negative 10, less than g, my 3's cancel, less than negative 3. To graph this, it's the same process that we used to graph the other ones. We've still got 2 solutions, and actually it might even be a little bit easier, because when you look at this inequality, you physically see g between negative 10 and negative 3. So guess where we're going to shade? Between negative 10 and negative 3. So we've got open circles on both of our solutions because we don't have an or equal to. And just to make sure, if we look at just this, I would say g is greater than negative 10, so I'm going to shade to the right. And then if I'm looking at just this inequality, I've got G is less than negative 3, so I would shade left. If those inequality symbols were flipped the other way, we would have no solution. So double check just to make sure. Last example. Same process, whatever I do to one side, I do to all three sides. So the first thing I need to cancel is that positive 6. Negative 50 minus 6, I'm digging myself further into debt, or I'm borrowing more money. Same thing over here, negative 8 plus negative 6 is negative 14. And to finish getting k by itself, I'm going to divide everything by 7. Negative 56 divided by 7 is negative 8. My 7's cancel, and we get negative 2. So in order to graph this one, I need negative 8 and negative 2. We've got k is greater than or equal to that negative 8. I was reading it this way in case you were confused. And then k is less than negative 2. So closed circle for the 8, negative 8, open circle for the negative 2. And again, k is greater than negative 8, so I'm shading to the right. K is less than negative 2, so I'm shading to the left, or in between my two solutions. So here are your you try questions.